For today's cup of coffee, we were run inside by storm.
Yeah, it's insane. It's literally pouring down like God has decided to drop a bucket on us.
Which that's okay because we have needed rain for weeks.
Absolutely, and it's supposed to rain all week, like this.
And that'll be okay. That'll be okay.
Yeah.
So we're inside as far as the living room, and yes, this is the plague doctor. That is, he is. That's where he lives.
Yep, that's where he lives from now on.
Yeah, if you wondered where he went, that is the plague doctor.
Yep.
The original one. You know, not these modern fake plague doctors. Anyhow, we have...
we have one of the original skeletons of a plague doctor in here.
Hey, that would be really cool if we did.
Do you want an actual skeleton in here? I thought you were the one who was like, no, you can't have a shrunken head. That's someone's face. What's the difference between that and having bones?
It doesn't have somebody's face. The face is gone.
It's someone's bones. It's where their face is built on.
Well, there are a lot of people that donate their bodies to science and stuff like that. Not for shrunken heads, for entertainment purposes.
I don't know. I would donate my head to be shrunken.
Anyhow, but it's the actual human skeletons are very, very expensive.
Thousands.
Yeah, because they have to rewire everything so that it can be articulated, and a lot of times it's very rarely articulated.
You can actually get human skulls legally.
Well, I don't even want to know where those would come from, but
Internet.
But with the human skeleton and stuff, you can see as far as where the tendons and stuff like that insert into the bone, so that's
right,
very beneficial.
I understand it, but I don't see it as any different as far as owning a genuine shrunken head.
Not that many people are going to donate their faces to be shrunken heads.
I would. I volunteer as tribute.
Yeah, right. No.
If I'm already dead, go ahead and take my head off. I'll vibe as a shrunken head.
Well, one of the cups of coffee, we will actually go into how that process is done. That could be interesting.
And shrunken heads that are like bought on eBay or whatever, those aren't, real human faces. Those are actually monkey.
That's bad enough.
Yeah. I'm fine with taxidermy.
Well, taxidermy would be, I don't know. I have issues with some of that stuff.
I like fur. I like taxidermy. I love, as a matter of fact, I absolutely adore taxidermy. Speaking of taxidermy,
we have the indoor cats that have been recently barbered again because they needed to be.
One side looks better. Oh my God, the fleas.
Anyhow, that's why they had to be shaven.
I'm picking the fleas off of him as we speak.
Anyhow, go get a cup of alcohol and put that in there. Nobody needed to know that.
I'm putting the toilet on.
Okay. Yeah. Anyhow, this comes from Mysterious Universe.
I'm going to have to walk in front of the camera.
Kid needs to tear it so badly. Anyhow, this comes from Mysterious Universe and has been written by Brent Swanser. It was August the 7th of 2021. And this is the strange case of an alien cow abduction and mutilation in 1897. And I actually meant to go back and look which cup of coffee that it was. I'll wait and put it in the description box. It's not been that long ago, a week or so ago, when we discussed about the airship sightings in the 1890s.
Yeah.
So this very much could fall under that category. And Mr. Swanser writes, one weird feature of the world of UFOs and aliens is that of the phenomenon of cattle mutilations. This is when cattle or other livestock are found dead in very strange circumstances.
Ew.
The carcasses are usually cut up, drained of blood, missing soft tissue, organs, or other extremities, dismembered or otherwise mutilated in a variety of ways, always showing a surgical precision to the cuts, not consistent with the attack of a predator such as a coyote or mountain lion. And this is where Linda Moulton Howe comes in, because she was one of the primary ones that has been studying the cattle mutilations for decades now.
Mm-hmm. What if it's not aliens? What if it's wendigos that are eating You know?
Well, yeah, there's always a question of what is doing this. And that was what I was asking you, if you had heard of as far as the missing limbs.
No.
And that was something that I'm not familiar with. I mean, a lot of times it was harvesting of, the reproductive organs, eyes, tongue, different things like that. But in some respects, they had said that it almost looked like it had been cauterized.
Right.
So, and I have heard over the years some people's like, oh, it's insects that did that, but
Why would
no.
why would it be cauterized if they're taking limbs off and such? What are they planning on keeping the animal alive, or do they just not realize that the animal will die without the blood or whatever?
Oh, they know that. They're bound to. Any kind of a whatever it is that is harvesting these animals, which they said it could be like a laser or something like that, that is used to remove the different organs, So yeah, I mean, they obviously understand that these are living creatures, and when they do whatever, they are no longer living. They don't move so good.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I would say so.
There are typical other oddities with cattle mutilations or animal mutilations as well, such as the lack of flies or strange substances seeping from the wounds, which are sometimes even cauterized. Cattle will be reported miles away from where they disappeared or in inaccessible places. There is never any sign of tracks of any kind. It's as if the animal just materialized where it was found or carefully placed from the air. I don't know about the carefully.
Yeah, I don't know about that. How do we know that they're not just tossed?
Well, I guess that there would be, as far as broken bones and different things like that, if they had been dropped from a great height.
I mean, they'd be mush if they were dropped from like hundreds of feet in the air.
It would just be like cow pancake.
It's the same thing as if people jump off, buildings or whatever.
So I guess that's why they're saying carefully placed. It says even insects are usually said to shun these mystery corpses. And one of the only known reports of someone actually witnessing a cow being abducted by aliens, and which would become a spooky case of cattle mutilation, supposedly happened all the way back in 1897 in the rural area of Leroy, Kansas in the United States. One evening... Leroy. Around here, it's Leroy, but I would say that that's probably Leroy, because it's got the little E and the capital R right after, so that's Leroy. One evening in April of that year, a local cattle rancher by the name of Alexander Hamilton. Now, I don't know if that's like
the Hamilton.
The Hamilton. It didn't say anything about it.
It had to be. It had to
so
be
it
some
was.
Other...
Yeah, that's what I figure. And his son were apparently woken up around 10:30 p.m. by the sound of noise amongst the cattle. It was at first thought that it was just their dog, but when Hamilton went to the window to look outside, he claimed that he witnessed a very strange-looking and enormous airship hovering above the cow lot. Who has a cow lot? It's a cow pen. Anyhow. Around 600...
A car lot for cows.
Yeah, around 600 feet away, with strange beings visible within it. And Hamilton would say, quote, calling my tenant and my son Wall. Who names a son Wall? Anyhow.
I don't know.
We seized some axes
files
and ran to the corral. Meanwhile, the ship had been gently descending until it was not more than 30 feet above the ground, and we came within 50 yards of it. It consisted of a great cigar-shaped portion, possibly 300 feet long, with a carriage underneath. The carriage was made of glass or some other transparent substance, alternating with a narrow strip of some material. It was brightly lighted within, and everything was plainly visible. It was occupied by 6 of the strangest beings I ever saw. They were jabbering together, but we could not understand a word they said. Every part of the vessel, which was not transparent, was of a dark reddish color. We stood mute with wonder and fright. Then some noise attracted their attention, and they turned a light directly upon us. Immediately on catching sight of us, they turned on some unknown power, and a great turbine wheel, which about 30 feet in diameter, which was revolving slowly beneath the craft, began to buzz, and the vessel rose lightly as a bird, unquote. As the three of them looked on in absolute astonishment, the flying craft seemed to have taken an interest in the cattle below. In particular, it seemed to float over and to a heifer that it seemed especially drawn to. Then a very bizarre sequence of events would play out. Hamilton would say, quote, when about 300 feet above us, it seemed to pause and hover directly over a 2-year-old heifer, which was bawling and jumping, apparently fastened in the fence. Going to her, we found some material fastened in a slip knot around her neck, and going up to the vessel from the heifer tangled in the wire fence. We tried to get it off, but could not. So we cut the wire loose to see the ship, heifer and all, rise slowly, disappearing in the northwest, end quote.
They took the cattle.
They took the cow.
Why didn't they cut the thing that was like on the cow?
I guess it was a panic moment. I don't know. The following day,
Save the cows!
Hamilton went out to look for the cow, but could find no trace of it, not even any tracks. A baffled rancher went around the baffled rancher went around to other ranchers in the area, but no one had seen the missing animal. However, he would soon find someone who had made a rather gruesome find a few miles away, of which Hamilton would say, quote, coming back in the evening, I found that Link Thomas, about 3 or 4 miles west of Leroy, had found the hide, legs, and head in his field that day. He, thinking that someone had butchered a stolen beast, had brought the hide to town for identification, but was greatly mystified in not being able to find any tracks in the soft ground. After identifying the hide with my brand, I went home. But every time I would drop to sleep, I would see the cursed thing with its big lights and hideous people. I don't know whether they are devils or angels or what, but we all saw them. And my whole family saw the ship,
aliens.
and I don't want any more to do with them.
They're ETs.
Well, were they? We don't know.
Ew, ET phone home.
It was reported that the remains had no footprints around them, no sign of predator activity, in fact, no signs of any struggle, as if they had just been carefully placed there from above. The whole sensational account would be published in the Yates Center Farmer's Advocate, and once it was out in the wild, became big local news. At the time, the region was in the throes of a series of mysterious sightings of strange airships, often described as highly advanced flying machines covered with electric lights and well ahead of anything available at the time, often seen manned by very strange-looking humanoid occupants.
Uh-huh.
Like I said, I'll put the link to the one where we had already discussed this.
Yeah.
When the odd news hit, there immediately came in a deluge of witnesses saying they had seen the same ship in the area where the cow abduction had occurred, and Hamilton even had over a dozen high-profile, well-respected citizens sign an affidavit vouching for his tale and his honesty, including several sheriffs, pharmacists, attorneys, a banker, a doctor, the state oil inspector, the justice of the peace, the postmaster, and the register of deeds.
Everybody and their grandmother who's in the kitchen sink.
Well, it was everybody who was anybody that was, supposed to be the hierarchy of the community.
Everybody plus the fellow kitchen sink.
No, everybody minus the kitchen sink, because you've always got those that's not of the beautiful peoples. Anyhow,
kitchen sink is definitely not one.
No, considering that at the time Hamilton was a very respected, upstanding citizen, a stock dealer, and successful. Sally sells seashells by the seashore.
Sally sells seashells by the seashore.
Businessman.
Seashore!
Most people believed his story, and it generated a lot of excitement. One statement made his impeccable character reads, quote, you make it so much harder. Oh, God,
impeccable. Impeccable is not a word.
You make it so much harder for me. Hamilton's popularity in the community is unmistakable, not only on account of his fidelity to duty in public office, but also because of his honorable business career, his fidelity to manly principles, and his reliability in private life. During the long years of his residence in Kansas, he has left the impress of his individuality for good upon the communities with which he has been connected, and he feels just pride in the splendid advancement made by his adopted state. We have never heard his word questioned, and that we do verily believe his statement to be true and correct. In other words, he don't lie.
He ain't no lie.
He ain't no liar.
Life's
It says
a lie.
the Hamilton cow abduction story would eventually fade away into obscurity until it was dug up again in the 1960s. Jacques Vallée would mention it in his book Anatomy of a Phenomenon in 1965, and after that it would feature in a best-selling book by ufologist Frank Edwards in his book Flying Saucers, Serious Business in 1966. For a long time was considered to be a very intriguing early UFO account, and perhaps the only time a cattle mutilation had actually been witnessed by someone. But a 1977 article in Fate magazine would take some of the wind out of its sails. Author Jerome Clark would uncover the fact that Hamilton had allegedly at the time been a member of a local liars club.
A liar that's not a person that's not a liar is part of a liars club.
Now this liars club is where prominent citizens would make up wild yarns to see which ones would make it into the news and fool people the most. Oh, we do this on internet. It's like Babylon Bee at the time.
Yeah.
Okay. Clark cited as evidence of a 1943 article from a Kansas newspaper called the Buffalo Enterprise, which held the testimony on a Mrs. Donna Steby of Wichita, Kansas, who related how her 93-year-old mother, Ethel L. Shaw, had known Hamilton, and that he had told her that it was all a big wild yarn that had gotten out of hand. Shaw would apparently tell Clark of it all. Quote, "How well I remember that beautiful afternoon, almost as though it were yesterday. I, as a young girl about 14 years old, was visiting in the Hamilton home, and Mrs. Hamilton and their daughter Nell, when Mr. Hamilton came from town, put up his team, and came into the sitting room where we were visiting. He pulled up a chair and almost immediately began relating his story by saying, 'Ma, I fixed up quite a story and told the boys in town. It will come out in the Advocate this weekend.'" Unquote. Not only that, but she also claimed that all of the ones who had signed the affidavit had been members of the very same Liars Club, and that he had hoaxed the other airship sightings in the area by using fake airships that he had crafted out of cleaning bags, candles, and balsa wood.
Oh, that is such a lie.
Clark also mentions the discovery of a Robert Schadenwald, an American correspondent of the British publication Fortean Times, who in 1976 uncovered an article in the Buffalo Enterprise of January 1943, an account by a man named Ed F. Hudson, who claimed that he had been the editor of the Yates Center Farmers Advocate, and that Hamilton had admitted to faking the sighting, and even claimed to have seen the workshop where he had been making his fake UFOs. Hudson would say of this, quote, "I had just bought and installed a little gasoline engine, the first I believe to come to Yates Center, using it to run my machinery, replacing the hand-powered on the Old County Campbell press and kicking the jaw presses. I invited many of my friends into the back shop to see the engine work. Hamilton was one of them. He exclaimed, 'Now they can fly!' Hence the airship story that we made up. After we had published it, the story was copied in many of the largest newspapers in the country, England, France, and Germany, some illustrating it with pen-drawn imagings by their staff artists. There were also hundreds of inquiries from every part of the globe. Soon afterwards, there came the various experiments in flight, but I have always maintained that Alex Hamilton was the real inventor of human flight." End quote. This all seems pretty damning, and the story had gone on to be seen as a big historical hoax, largely thanks to Clark's article, but there are those willing to defend Hamilton's story and have raised some points in their defense over the years. For one, Hamilton never really publicly admitted to it at all being bogus, and was long dead by that time, and was in no position to defend himself. It's also the fact that this is a second-hand tale from an elderly lady, so who is to say that she really knows what she's talking about, or is telling the truth herself? Absolutely. As for Hudson, how do we know we can believe him either? There is actually no hard evidence that Hamilton was part of the Liars Club, or that the others who had vouched for him were just
Lying bear cubs.
You're making it so hard. Just these admissions uncovered long after the fact. Although the main consensus now is that Hamilton was indeed lying, what if he wasn't? One argument...
I would like to think that he wasn't.
Right.
But...
One argument from a defender of his was written by the last Sisyphus on Medium, who says, quote, "The vast majority of experts hold that it was a hoax. A couple of thoughts on the issue. One reason experts disagree with Hamilton's testimony is that he belonged to the Liars Club. There is no doubt that this was probably the case, but to suggest that Hamilton's UFO testimony is an elaborate hoax because he was involved in a Liars Club raises questions. The first, since he was a member of the Liars Club, we could in theory dismiss every word Hamilton ever said based on his involvement with the group. But that is not fair. Hamilton probably told the truth on a number of occasions despite being a part of the Liars Club. Why is it not possible that he told the truth about the UFO? He is, after all, backed up literally by countless UFO reports. The second, Hamilton did not give the hoax up, if it was indeed a hoax. We have no evidence that he admitted his story was a hoax. Also, there were others who witnessed this phenomenon. Hamilton even signed an affidavit, which is not something to joke about, no matter how elaborate the prank, and was practicing law in Leroy, Kansas. The hyperskeptics have no basis to dismiss his testimony. Nothing. The most radical position for them to hold, while maintaining consistency in their own logic and scientific worldview, such as we are not at the pinnacle of scientific discovery, is to remain indifferent to Hamilton's testimony. The wisest response for a skeptic is thus: we simply do not have enough information to dismiss Mr. Hamilton's testimony, therefore we must keep silent on the matter. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I like that.
Because, the fact that he and a Liars Club was just, they made up stories to amuse each other.
Uh-huh.
But as far as him going that far with a prank and to think that other of these prominent people in the community would go along with that prank, and knowing that if it were found out that their reputation would be shot.
Exactly, so why would they...
Right, why would they do that?
There would be no way that they would be able to keep their story straight.
Right. So, I would have a tendency to... And that was back in the time when a person's word, that was it.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody was found out to be deceiving someone or a true liar or something like that, they were done.
Yeah.
And so I have a tendency to believe what he said.
Again?
1897.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
People, most people still had integrity and stuff. And like I said, for the officials, the, prominent people of a community to all be on that to scam people.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the fact that this thing during that day and time went worldwide.
Yeah.
Oh no, people, that would have brought shame on them, to them, their families, the community. It would not have been worth it.
Yeah, very much so. It would not have been worth it, as it could have been highly detrimental.
Right. So for these people, long after this man had been dead, to sit there and then call him a liar. And we see this.
I think that happens all the time.
Oh, sure. We see this in today's world. It's like somebody that was not there accuses somebody that can no longer defend themselves.
Which is a shitty move.
That's punching low. You talk about punching low.
Yeah.
So,
You're punching literally their grave. That's no way to live.
Yeah.
At all.
So I would rather, there was something going on during that time, and for people later to say that it was mass hysteria or whatever it was, they were seeing something. They were seeing something.
Do you think it's mass hysteria, Kitty? Huh? Do you think
But
it
now,
is? I don't think it is.
As far as people jumping on the bandwagon,
that just pisses
we
me
have
off.
been told about that recently,
Mm-hmm.
that there was an individual who was found hanged, and it was...
Yeah, this was a real life thing.
Yeah, this is like...
2 months he
2
hung
months.
there, and nobody knew.
Nobody noticed. Nobody noticed him being missing. And so it was reported that he was found by a couple of kids on bicycles, who I'm sure those children have been traumatized.
Oh, hey, there's that body. Let's hit it.
And
Let's hit it with a stick.
And because he had been there for so long, there were animals that had, been at the body. So that's bound to have been more traumatizing
rotted.
For the kids.
He would have been absolutely
Of course
rotted by that
As
time.
hot as it's been? Are you serious? I mean, that was gross. Just thinking about it, that is gross. But then a friend of ours had told us that all these other people were jumping on the bandwagon. Oh, I saw him. And I'm like, if you saw him and you did not report that to the authorities, I think that's some kind of crime.
Absolutely, that's a crime. Do they not realize?
Well, there's some. I can't remember exactly what the charge would be. It's not as far as violating a corpse or anything like that, but there is some kind of law that
evidence.
You're supposed. Well, they wouldn't do anything, but to say that you saw a corpse hanging for days and weeks and months and said nothing, that's some kind of illegal. If it's not, it should be.
It's not reporting a body.
It could be, yeah. But it's like, who does that? Who wants to get on that bandwagon to say, yes, I saw him and I did nothing?
If I saw him, I would have called the cops immediately.
Oh, absolutely. But also, what kind of a person do you have to be that's gone for 2 months and no one misses you? But from what we have said, people that had knowledge of this person, there was nothing to miss. And that sounds bad, but yeah.
I'm sure there's someone out there that misses him.
I don't know. And sometimes you can do things in your life that, that's so heinous. And it's a sad thing. It really, really is a sad thing.
Yeah.
But we make choices to either be blessings or curses.
Right, exactly.
So, anyhow.
It's like, what would you rather be, a blessing or a curse?
Right.
Personally, I would like to be a blessing.
Sure, we'd like to be blessings to people.
I was like, someone was being rude to me. Like earlier, it's the person that was being very rude and trying to expose me, and me being like, honey, you're not trying to expose me. You haven't exposed me.
This is a TikTok thing here.
Exposed me. Loie Lane already did that. I did that myself before Chapter 2 came along, and I even said I was privating all videos made in between chapters before Chapter 2 started.
Well, you've always got to have people, and it's usually people that weren't there trying to discredit those who were.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens with paranormal and supernatural encounters all the time.
Exactly.
That's the reason that people are so hesitant to come forward and admit that they have had an experience.
Yeah.
Which is why this channel's like, oh, tell us, we ain't gonna shame you.
Exactly. Why would we? We had weird shit
we
happen
grew
to
up,
us.
Absolutely, because we know what it's like.
You have a child sitting right here, me. That was like, I miss my alien friends.
Yeah, that you have had quite a few of the UFO-ish type things since you were very small.
The fact that Dad saw a UFO while I was there.
Well, your father
I
has
didn't
had.
see it.
Your father has had quite a few supernatural and paranormal encounters. So have other family members. We did videos on that. Those of you who may be new, you can go back and there's quite a few videos to catch up on.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that I was born doing this stuff, seeing this stuff, was a paid psychic, all that. It's been my world. It's all I know.
Yeah.
So I very much know what it is for people to try to shame you and discredit you and call you crazy and everything else. And you just got to hold your ground on it.
Yeah.
And you find your tribe that will listen to you and believe you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And that would be us.
Yeah.
So, if you've had experiences with the paranormal and supernatural, encounters with UFOs or aliens, cryptids, we like the cryptids.
Big feet. Big feet.
Local legends or myths, anything like that that you would like to share with us, just send us an email. He distracts me. Oh God, he distracts me. Send me an email at cupofcoffeewithscream@gmail.com. www.eyewitness.com, and do not be afraid to speak truth. The truth will stand when the world's on fire.
Look to the skies.
So you all have a beautiful, blessed day.
Oh, there goes my cow. They took him. Oh, God.